morning. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I, Rebecca, recap live trials. And yes, I am in pain. Not gonna lie, everything on my left side of my body is screaming right now. So I just got a long, hot shower. And if you missed it, yes, I was in a car accident day before yesterday. Rear-ended and then hard rear-ended, and to the point where it pushed my car into another vehicle. I was sandwiched, so I think my car's a total loss, and so is half my body apparently. But the good news is I'm alive. Don't go to the ER. This is what I've learned. Don't go to the emergency room. What a zoo. And it was a Tuesday afternoon. What's going on a Tuesday afternoon? Well, I did find out what's going on. It's the weather. It's this 100-degree weather. We have a lot of homeless here in Wichita. I mean, every city does, but they have nowhere else to go. So, I mean, this ER lobby, because you think, oh, getting in an ambulance, this gets me a bed in the ER. At least I'm coming by an ambulance. Woo woo. No, what they do is she says, I'll go get you a wheelchair. Okay. But I'm warning you, she says you're gonna have to sit in the waiting room. So so she comes back, she goes, no wheelchairs. Gotta walk. Okay. Whatever happened to putting a C collar on for a cervical injury until after the scan? I guess I've been watching too much Chicago Med. That's not reality. I'm a nurse. That used to be reality. You kept the C collar on until you made sure there was no cervical injury. You put her anyway. There were beds in the hallway. Um, then I get out to the waiting room, and it's just a zoo, an absolute zoo. But for the rest of that story, watch the live from last night. It's a very long story, and it'll teach you not to go to the ER. Anyway, so closing arguments. We're going to talk about closing arguments in the Thomas Randolph case. He did not take the stand. No. Somehow the attorneys got through to that man that he doesn't need to say anything right now. They really, the danger of putting that man on the stand would have opened doors. And that prosecution was hoping he'd get on the stand, because as soon as that door was open, the other wives were going to walk through it. And but keeping him off the stand, probably the wiser choice for the defense. So they went right to closing arguments. No witnesses for the defense. Right to closing arguments, and the jury actually did get to deliberate last night for 30 minutes to an hour, and then at 5 p.m. Pacific time, they were sent home, and they will begin their deliberations again today in about another half hour. Still fairly early. It's only 8:24 on the East Coast when I'm on the West Coast, Pacific Coast. You know what I mean. Sorry. I'm not firing on all cylinders, okay? And it's not because of lack of coffee. It's just I'm in pain. And I got to go pick up a rental car today. And we need groceries. I was going to grocery shop, and now I'm thinking, just get takeout. Yeah, because I'm not going to stand in the kitchen and cook. Anyway, let's talk about closing arguments. So we know that the prosecution gets to go first, then the defense, and then the prosecution gets to do a rebuttal closing argument. So there's two prosecutors, male and a female. The female went first. She talked about, her theme was that Thomas Randolph is an unreliable narrator. Like, he's just relishing in this narration that he does during the video walkthrough and during the interviews. The interview footage, you should have seen him. I don't know if I can imitate him because of my body, but he's like sitting in a chair and he's got his arms, and he's relaxing and telling war stories, and like these guys are like they're sitting at a bar having a drink. Yeah, and these are his pals. So he's an unreliable narrator. Was that my stomach? Oh, did you hear that? Oh my gosh, I hope that didn't come across on the microphone. So she pointed out that during one of the interviews, he even says, I am reasonably honest. Not, oh, I'm being totally honest with you. No, I'm reasonably honest with you. I'm a reasonably honest person. The heck does that mean? So she's asking the jury, please, if you look at the video walkthrough again, and I urge you, look at it as many times as you want. When you look at it again and you look at these interviews and you think about these things and you're discussing them, ask yourself, does this make sense? Does his version of the story make sense? There is absolutely no ballistic evidence in that hallway, save for one bullet casing that was at the threshold of the garage and in the hallway. Everything else happened in the garage. That's where all the other casings were found. Yeah. He was shot 5 times, twice in the head, and you could tell from the trajectory of the bullet into the head that those occurred from someone standing over him. So those would have been the last shots fired. And then the first several were on the left side of Mike Miller's body. Then she talked about let's talk about the ski mask. It had no holes in it. You just shot the man twice in the head. He had no time to take his ski mask off. You said he had a ski mask on when you started shooting him, but when you end the shooting, the ski mask isn't on him. I don't know. Now, like I said, Mike Miller was shot on the left side, even left side of the head, on the left side 5 times. But during the narration by Thomas Randolph, he keeps describing that he was shooting him on the right side of his body. And then they talk about this weird relationship that developed between the defendant and Mike Miller. He meets him at a convenience store in proximity, within a day or two of his girlfriend giving him an ultimatum. It's Sharon or me. And he said, I will find a way to deal with Sharon. Meets this handyman in a convenience store where he buys him a 44-ounce beer. And then a few minutes later, sees him on the side of the road, picks him up, offers him a ride home. And then they sit in front of the mailbox for hours talking. Just a very weird relationship. And one of the themes that I thought was interesting is, why didn't this guy rob them when they were out of town? They only came home that weekend. They had been gone the entire week prior to this shooting over in Utah, where Thomas Randolph's father had just had a stroke. They drove home so he could do Mother's Day with her, and they did take her daughter Colleen and Colleen's husband out to dinner the night before, same restaurant in this casino, and they were planning to go right back to Utah after Mother's Day, the next day after the murder. So why would this handyman / burglar choose the 1 hour that you're away from the house to commit this burglary? Why? It makes no sense. And then after he shoots Sharon, he puts the gun down next to her. He leaves the gun. Now, if you're a burglar, why don't you just take the gun? Take the gun with you. That's worth something. Left all the jewelry on Sharon. Um, Left the $100 bill that was sitting in her open purse, very visible. Left that sitting there. And then why would you bring a change of clothes to the burglary? Now, granted, very few burglaries make sense because, it's a burglary and these guys are not probably in their right mind anyway. But they, he He had 2 bags next to his body that were found. The one was a black Walmart clothing bag, and inside of it was all this stuff, including the keys to a house. The guy just walked right in. Now, if you had staged this right, Mr. Randolph, you would have made Mike Miller make it look like a break-in, but you forgot to do that. He had a key. Also, where was his transportation? There was no car at the scene, no bicycle at the scene. How did he get there? The only other way he would have gotten to Randolph's house is if Thomas Randolph never took him home that day. He had spent the afternoon with Thomas Randolph. They went to look at jet skis. They were supposed to go to the bank so that Randolph could deposit his $20,000 that he had transferred, or I don't know, he had $20,000, but he missed his exit because they were talking. And so he said, by then they got a call from Sharon saying, we've got dinner reservations at 6:30. Are you on your way home? And he's like, yeah. So he knew he didn't have time to go to the bank. Now, I don't know how late his bank is open, but mine closes about 5 p.m., 4:30. They roll up the carpets. He said that prior to him going out to dinner, he had dropped Mike Miller off near a car wash that was near Mike's girlfriend's house. Did he really? Or I suspect he dropped him somewhere close and then Mike just walked back over there. Mike had told many of the witnesses that took the stand that he was coming into some money. He was, except he got double crossed by Thomas Randolph. Then one of the things that Thomas Randolph said during his interview was that he was doing CPR like a madman on his wife. Even though that CPR didn't start until 6 minutes in to the 911 phone call, because he was doing 100 other things. He had to go do this and he had to go do that, and he had no blood on his clothing at all. And he kept saying, there's blood everywhere. She's bleeding. You know, he's crying and sobbing that she's bleeding. Yeah, didn't make any sense. So then the defense gets up there to do their closing arguments. And he said, this is just a case where Thomas Randolph did what any of us would have done. We would have defended our wife. We would have defended our home. And you have a right as a U.S. citizen to bear arms and protect your property. Yes. Then he tried to make hay of this 12-minute timeline. The prosecution has said it took probably in the range of 12 minutes between the shooting and the time Thomas Randolph called 911 at 8:45. My nose is itching again. Someone's going to give me some money. No. Okay. So the defense says, oh, but we blew that timeline out of the water. I'm thinking, you did? How? Well, here's how they think they did it. If you see the surveillance footage from Funny's gas station, they left the restaurant at the casino. They go to this Funny's gas station, and they leave Funny's gas station at 8:26. That's when you see them departing. But on this same surveillance footage, once they depart, they take a right, and they're still seen on the surveillance footage sitting at a stoplight for another minute and a half. So that blows the timeline out of the water. How? Then he talks about the neighbor. Even if you ignore the Funny's timing, you talk about the neighbor. The neighbor said he got a phone call at 8:33, and it was during that phone call that he heard the shots, which doesn't add up when you subtract it from 8:45 till the time this neighbor hears the shooting. It's not 12 minutes. So the prosecution lied to you. They're liars. Hold them. This is a contract. when they tell you that the evidence is going to show something and it doesn't show that, they've breached their contract with you. Okay. Then, of course, he went through the scene is contaminated. Here's everybody that walked through the scene. Yes. And he had a whole list of names. Everybody that was there was a lot of people at that scene, but they weren't on the scene. They were outside the house. Very few people entered that house. I'm trying to think, what else did they talk about? These closing arguments were very lengthy. I was watching them till late last night, 11:30 or so. Um, like I said, the jury, they will begin deliberations again in about 20 minutes. I'm going to put up a verdict watch, and I will try to go live when there's a verdict. I do have to go pick up a rental car at 12:30. If they come back that quickly, I may not be able to go live. But once I get back home from the rental car, I will. If they haven't reached a verdict, I will go live when they have a verdict. Does that make sense? I think it does. Anyway, I need to go take some more medicine and lay down, and I will see you guys tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily, and I will catch you up on the Henry Dinkins story. I owe you updates on Henry Dinkins. I owe you updates on um, Alexia Treviso. I owe you updates on Brian Kohlberger. There's so much to update you on, but life happens, and then it just stops you in your tracks, and I do apologize. So, but we're going to get to it. I also want to do a special edition of Lucy Let because there's some other stuff that I think you find very interesting that is going on with that case. So have a good day, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.